So we have the COVID inquiry for Ireland in the works or coming, although we don't know when, right? But hopefully this will regenerate some interest in the whole thing, right? And reading around it, we have NEFIT set up in January 2020, right? We have a subgroup of NEFIT set up, and their primary interest was in behavioural change, right? So the studies that they were pulling from and the experiments that they were conducting, right, or that they were drawing their information from, was sociological, and it was from the behavioural sciences, which means that their main interest was in altering people's behaviours and how to best go about altering people's behaviours, in this case the Irish people's, right? Which is nefarious enough in itself, right? Because it should be enough to explain things coherently enough to people that they would be able to make an informed decision on how best suited to them that they would go about conducting their defence against the pandemic or whatever, right? But one of the striking things is the social distancing thing. Because there's not just a social distancing thing, because it kind of makes sense, because social distancing could be 10 miles away from a sick person, right? It makes sense that if you're staying a massive distance away from sick people, you probably won't catch it. Or the theory goes so far anyway, right? But the arbitrary number, and it is arbitrary, of 2 meters, there's no basis for that. It's not grounded in any sort of wisdom or knowledge, right? It hasn't been drawn out of experimental observations where 6 feet or 2 meters was bang on the money as to the distance where people would no longer become sick or infected from being around a host, right? Or a sick person. So that's question number one that you would imagine a serious and penetrating inquiry would have, right? So where did this number come from? And if there's no scientific or evidentiary backing of this number of 6 feet, 2 meters, why go along with it? Why go along with it? So Anthony Fauci says that he's like the Tony Houlihan of America, right? He suggested that it came from the CDC, and the CDC were drawing on a far older study that was oriented around or developed out of the idea of if someone coughed, the particles or the droplets would maybe go about 6 feet, 2 meters, right? Therefore, staying 2 meters apart or 6 feet apart would be good practice to try and stop the spread of COVID. But that's a nonsense, right? Because number one, you're not guaranteed the droplets won't go any further than 6 feet. But that is irrelevant, because what was found was that COVID, according to the average gist of it, right, it's an aerosol, a spread through aerosol, right? So it's spread through your breathing. It's not spread directly from or solely from droplets that would come from a coughing or a sneezing, right? So that wasn't how the infection spread. So the story goes, right? So the number of 2 meters or 6 feet is totally arbitrary. So why would a government continuously pump out the 2 meters and the 6 feet thing? To the degree that they painted it everywhere. They had signs and posters of it everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing the 6 feet thing. You still see these markers around the place in some shops. They didn't even bother pulling their stickers up off the ground, right? So why, and the money that's spent on that, how much did that cost to go around painting these things all over the place and making the signage and making the stickers and all that sort of stuff, right? When the number was totally arbitrary, which is just plucked out of the air, right? It had no scientific or evidentiary backing at all. But your money was spent on this. And the cost of living, which has been raised to go and pay back this money that was borrowed for these stickers and these paint jobs, right? You're paying the price of that now. COVID was not a freebie, right? The response to COVID nationally was not a freebie. You're now paying the costs back on that, right? But that's question number one. If inquiry is going to be anyway serious, which we should be conducting our own inquiry individually and maybe collectively, coinciding with the government's one, right? So we know that the number 6 feet was completely arbitrary. Why would the government persist in it? Why would the government persist in telling you that you need to stay 2 meters apart from people? Totally arbitrary.